The first rule of working at the bookstore is simple. Never follow a customer past the third aisle. I broke that rule on my second day. That's how I learned the rest of them matter a lot more. The place is called Weeping Tree Books. You wouldn't notice anything strange at first glance. It's tucked into a quiet courtyard, with a crooked willow tree hanging over the sign like it's trying to hide it. Most people who walk in are just curious, tourists, students, people looking to kill time. Those are the ones I try to protect. When someone normal comes in, I keep things light. Smile. Make small talk. Redirect them if they wander too far. New arrivals are up front, I'll say. Or, we're having a sale today. There is no sale. There are barely even new books. But distractions work. Most of the time. The other customers don't need help. They come in already knowing where to go. You can tell who they are immediately. They don't browse. They don't hesitate. And if you look at them directly, they seem fine. It's only when you catch them in your peripheral vision that things feel wrong. Too tall. Too still. Too many joints bending where they shouldn't. I stopped looking after the first week. I've been working here for 3 months now, and I haven't stepped outside once. Not because I don't want to. Because I can't. The man who hired me, never gave a name, just a contract, was very clear about that. Leaving isn't prohibited, he told me. It's simply ineffective. I thought he was joking. On my 5th day, I walked straight out the front door. I ended up back inside through the staff room. On my 7th day, I tried again. This time, the hallway stretched. The walls narrowed. The lights dimmed until I was crawling through something that definitely wasn't part of any bookstore. I turned back before I found out what was waiting at the end. That's when I started taking the rules seriously. They're written on a sheet of paper behind the front desk. Not typed, handwritten. The ink looks older than the building itself. Some of them make sense. Some of them don't. Rule number 4. If you hear someone calling your name from inside the shelves, do not answer. Rule number 7. If a book appears in your hands and you don't remember picking it up, put it back without opening it. Rule number 9. Do not acknowledge the crying. It isn't for help. I didn't understand that last one. Not until last night. That was the first time the bookstore cried back. The crying started just after midnight. That's when the bookstore changes. During the day, it behaves, mostly. The shelves stay where they should. The lights don't flicker as much. Even the air feels normal. But at night, it stretches. Breathes. Listens. I was behind the front desk, pretending to read a book I didn't dare open, when I heard it. A soft, broken sob. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, from the courtyard. The willow branches sometimes scrape against the glass when the wind picks up, and if you're tired enough, it can sound almost human. But there was no wind. And the sound wasn't outside. It was coming from somewhere deep in the aisles. I froze, staring at the rule sheet pinned beside the register. Rule number 9, do not acknowledge the crying. It isn't for help. The sob came again. Closer this time. Wet. Uneven. Like someone trying, and failing, to stay quiet. Every instinct I had told me to go check. To help. That's what normal people do when they hear someone in distress. But nothing about this place was normal. So I stayed where I was. Seconds passed. Or maybe minutes. Time doesn't move right here when you're paying attention to the wrong things. The crying stopped. Relief hit me so suddenly I almost laughed. Then I heard it again. Right behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The sound was wrong now, too close, too detailed. I could hear each shaky inhale, each trembling exhale. It sounded like someone standing inches from my ear, trying to hold themselves together. Please. The whisper brushed against the back of my neck. My fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. The rules didn't say anything about whispering. Only crying. That's how it gets you, I realized. It bends the rules just enough to make you doubt them. Please help me. I shut my eyes. This wasn't real. Or rather, it was real in the worst possible way. Real enough to hurt me if I reacted. So I did nothing. Didn't speak. Didn't move. Didn't even breathe. The silence stretched again, thicker this time. Then. A sharp crack echoed from somewhere in the store. Followed by a sudden, violent scraping sound, like something being dragged quickly across the floor. The presence behind me vanished. Just like that. I stayed frozen for a long time after. When I finally worked up the nerve to move, I turned, slowly. There was nothing there. No one. But on the wooden floor behind the desk, carved deep into the surface, were 3 long scratch marks. Fresh. And just beneath them, barely visible in the dim light. A single word. Look. I stared at it for a long time. Then, against my better judgment, I looked. Not at the floor. Not at the desk. But into the nearest aisle. And for the first time since I started working here, something looked back. I shouldn't have looked. The moment my eyes met the darkness between the shelves, I felt it, like something had locked onto me. At first, I couldn't see anything clearly. Just rows of books stretching farther than they should, the overhead lights dimmer than I remembered. But there was a shape in there. Too still. Too tall. It didn't move. That was the worst part. If it had rushed me, screamed, done anything, I could have reacted. But it just stood there, half hidden between the shelves, like it had always been there, waiting for me to notice. Then it tilted its head. Not naturally. Not like a person would. Too far. A slow, deliberate bend, like a joint being pushed past its limit. I staggered back from the desk. My heart was hammering so loud I was sure it could hear it. And then I remembered the first rule. Never follow a customer past the 3rd aisle. I hadn't followed anyone. But something had come to the edge of the 3rd aisle for me. That had to mean something. Right? The thing shifted. Just slightly. Enough for the light to catch part of its face. Or what should have been a face. There were features, eyes, a mouth, but they didn't sit right. Like someone had tried to assemble a human expression from memory and gotten the details wrong. The eyes were too wide, too reflective. The mouth stretched just a little too far at the corners. And it was smiling. Not kindly. Not welcoming. Just, smiling. I took another step back and bumped into the wall behind the desk. The bell above the front door suddenly rang. Sharp. Loud. Normal. I flinched and tore my eyes away for a split second. Worst mistake I could have made. When I looked back. It was closer. Not walking. Not running. Just, closer. Now it stood at the edge of the aisle. Right where the 3rd row ended. Its fingers, long, thin, wrong, curled slowly around the side of the shelf, gripping it like it needed support. Or like it was holding itself back. I realized something then. It wasn't allowed to come further. A shaky breath escaped me. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay, that's a rule. The thing twitched. Its smile widened. And then, in a voice that sounded like mine, perfectly, exactly mine, it spoke. You broke it first. Cold flooded through me. I didn't, I said instinctively, my voice cracking. I didn't follow anyone. It leaned forward slightly. Not crossing the line. never crossing the line. But close enough that I could see its eyes clearly now. They weren't reflecting light. They were holding it. "You looked," it said. Behind me, something creaked. Not from the aisles. From the front door. The bell hadn't rung again. But I knew, somehow, I wasn't alone anymore. The thing in the aisle kept smiling. "Now they can see you too." The lights flickered once. Twice. And then, all at once. Every aisle in the bookstore went dark. Except the third. Darkness swallowed the store in a single breath. Only the third aisle remained lit. A narrow strip of yellow light, humming faintly, like it was alive, like it had chosen what to reveal, and what to hide. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The thing in the aisle hadn't crossed the line, but now it didn't need to. The light framed it perfectly, every wrong angle, every stretched feature, every inch of that unnatural smile. And behind it. Shapes. More than one. At first, I thought it was just the shelves. Shadows stacking over shadows. But then one shifted. Another leaned. Something blinked. My stomach dropped. They'd always been there. Watching from deeper inside. "You shouldn't have looked," the thing said again, still in my voice. But now it wasn't just it speaking. There was an echo. Softer. Overlapping. Like others were trying to repeat the same words but didn't quite know how. "You shouldn't have looked." My hands trembled at my sides. Rule #3, I whispered, trying to remember if there was a rule for this. There wasn't. Of course there wasn't. The rules only help until they don't. Behind me, the front door creaked open. Slowly. Deliberately. The bell didn't ring. A cold draft slid across the floor, brushing against my ankles like something crawling past. I didn't turn to look. I couldn't afford to lose sight of the aisle again. The thing tilted its head back the other way this time, bone slow, precise. "Don't ignore your customers," it said. That wasn't my voice. That was new. A second voice layered beneath the first, deeper, cracked, like it had been unused for a very long time. The shadows behind it shifted again. One of them stepped forward. This one was shorter. Its outline jittered, like it couldn't decide what shape to hold. For a second it looked like a man. Then too thin. Then too wide. Then too close. I stumbled back instinctively. The front desk pressed into my spine again. The open door behind me felt like a second threat now, something waiting just out of sight. The thing in the aisle noticed. Of course it did. "You can leave," it said gently. That almost broke me. Because for a moment, just a moment, it sounded kind. Hopeful, even. "You can walk out," it continued, its smile stretching wider. "We won't stop you." The shapes behind it stilled. Waiting. I swallowed hard and glanced, just slightly, toward the open doorway. Outside, the courtyard was dark. No lights. No movement. But something about it felt wrong. Too still. Like a picture instead of a place. Like if I stepped through it, I wouldn't go outside. I'd go somewhere else. "You tried before," the thing whispered. "Try again." Behind me, something shifted in the doorway. A faint outline. Tall. Watching. My chest tightened. Trapped in front of me. Trapped behind me. And for the first time since I got here, I realized the worst possibility. What if the bookstore wasn't keeping me in, but keeping everything else out? The light in the third aisle flickered. The thing took a step forward. Closer than it should have been able to. Breaking the line. Breaking the rule. Its smile vanished. And in a voice that was no longer mine, it said, Now there are no rules. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The thing had stepped past the third aisle. That wasn't supposed to happen. Rules didn't just break here, they bent, twisted, found loopholes. But they always held, somehow. Until now. Now there are no rules. The words echoed through the bookstore, not just from its mouth but from everywhere at once, between the shelves, above the lights, beneath the floor. Something had changed. I felt it in the air. The store wasn't watching anymore. It was, waiting. The thing took another step forward. This time, the light didn't stop it. The edge of the aisle, whatever invisible boundary had been there, was gone. I reacted without thinking. I grabbed the rule sheet from behind the desk. The paper felt wrong in my hands, too warm, like it had been waiting for this. The ink shimmered faintly, as if it wasn't fully dry despite how old it looked. There had to be something. Some rule I missed. My eyes scanned the page, heart racing. Rules 1 through 9. The same as always. But at the bottom. There was more. A line I had never seen before. Not written in the same careful handwriting. This one was jagged. Uneven. Like it had been scratched into the paper in a hurry. Rule number 10, if a rule is broken, add a new one immediately. My stomach dropped. Of course, I whispered. The store didn't enforce the rules. We did. The thing was halfway to the desk now. Its movements weren't smooth anymore. They jerked, stuttered, like it was adjusting to something new, something it hadn't been allowed to do before. Behind it, the other shapes began to move too. Not rushing. Not yet. But following. I fumbled for a pen. There was always one on the desk, except now there wasn't. Of course there wasn't. The store was testing me. Come on, I muttered, patting my pockets, searching blindly. The thing was close enough now that I could hear it breathing. Except it wasn't breathing. It was mimicking the sound. A wet, hollow imitation. My fingers closed around something. A pen. I didn't remember picking it up. I didn't question it. I slammed the paper against the desk and started writing. My hand shook so badly the letters came out crooked, barely legible. Rule number 11, they cannot leave the aisles. The moment the ink touched the page. The lights snapped back on. All of them. The entire bookstore flooded with that dull, yellow glow. The thing froze mid-step. Right at the edge of the aisle. Its body jerked violently, like it had hit an invisible wall. The shapes behind it recoiled, pulling back into the shelves, retreating into shadow. Silence crashed down over everything. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then slowly. Very slowly. The thing's head turned toward me. Its smile returned. But this time, it wasn't mocking. It was, impressed. Good, it said softly. Not in my voice. Not in any voice I recognized. Something deeper. Older. Then, inch by inch, it stepped backward. Back into the third aisle. The boundary had returned. The rule held. My legs gave out and I dropped into the chair behind the desk, the paper still clutched in my hand. I stared at what I had written. The ink was already fading. Not disappearing. But sinking into the page. Becoming permanent. From somewhere deep in the store, I heard a low, shifting sound. Like something vast turning in its sleep. And then I understood. The rules weren't there to protect me. They were there to keep this place, stable. Balanced. And I had just changed something fundamental. The bookstore wasn't testing me anymore. It was adapting. Learning. And now. So was I. I didn't sleep after that. Not that I really could anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, standing at the edge of the aisle, frozen just inches from me, because I had written it that way. Not the store. Not the rules. Me. That realization sat heavy in my chest as the night dragged on. By morning, the bookstore looked normal again. Sunlight filtered weakly through the front window. The willow tree swayed gently outside, as if nothing had happened. But the rule sheet. It wasn't the same. I read it again, slowly. Rules 1 through 9 were unchanged. Rule number 10 was still there, jagged and crude. And rule #11. Rule number 11, they cannot leave the aisles. The handwriting had changed. It wasn't mine anymore. It had been rewritten, clean, careful, identical to the original script. Like the store had accepted it. Claimed it. A chill ran through me. I wasn't adding rules. I was feeding them into something that decided whether they stayed. A soft chime broke my thoughts. The bell above the door. A customer. I straightened instinctively, forcing a neutral expression as someone stepped inside. A man in his 30s, maybe. Ordinary. Jacket damp from the morning fog, phone in hand, distracted. Normal. Morning, he said casually, barely glancing at me. Morning, I replied, already watching his movements. He drifted toward the shelves, slow, uncertain. The kind of person who didn't belong here. The kind I needed to protect. Feel free to browse, I called out. Just, stay near the front if you can. Some of the back aisles are being reorganized. A lie. A necessary one. He nodded absently. For a while, everything was fine. Too fine. No shifting shelves. No flickering lights. No strange sounds. It felt calm. And that's what made me nervous. Because this place never stayed quiet without a reason. The man wandered closer to the third aisle. I tensed. Hey, I called, a little sharper this time. You might want to check out the display up here. He didn't respond. Just kept walking. Step by step. Toward the aisle. My pulse quickened. Rule number 11 should stop anything from leaving. But it didn't say anything about things pulling people in. Sir. He reached the edge. And paused. For a moment, I thought the rule was working. That something invisible was holding him back. Then. He leaned forward slightly. Like he was listening. My stomach dropped. From deep inside the aisle. Came a voice. Soft. Familiar. Help me. The man frowned. Hello. No. No, no, no. Sir, don't. He took a step forward. Into the aisle. The lights above it flickered once. And then went out. Darkness swallowed him instantly. The rest of the store stayed lit. Perfectly normal. Except for the empty space where a person had just been. I ran forward, stopping just short of the aisle. My breath came fast, shallow. Hey! I shouted. Can you hear me? No response. Just silence. Then. A faint sound. Footsteps. Not coming toward me. Moving deeper inside. And layered over them. More voices. Whispering. Repeating. Learning. I backed away slowly. Rule number 11 hadn't been enough. It kept them contained. But it didn't stop them from reaching out. From adapting. Just like I had. I returned to the desk, my hands already shaking as I picked up the rule sheet again. The pen was there this time. Waiting. Of course it was. I stared at the page for a long moment. Then at the dark aisle. Then back at the page. If I was going to survive this place. I couldn't just follow the rules. I had to stay ahead of them. Slowly, carefully. I lowered the pen. And began to write again. My hand hovered over the page longer than it should have. Writing a rule wasn't just writing anymore. It was a decision. A trade. Every word mattered. Too vague, and the store would twist it. Too strict, and I might trap myself along with everything else. I glanced toward the third aisle. Still dark. Still silent. But not empty. It was never empty. I swallowed and began to write. Rule number 12, voices from the aisles cannot mimic someone the listener knows. The pen jerked slightly as the last word formed, like something resisted it. For a second, nothing happened. Then the lights above the third aisle flickered back on. Dimmer than before. But on. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I muttered. That should. A sound cut me off. Footsteps. From inside the aisle. Slow. Uneven. Coming closer. My grip tightened on the desk. No way, I whispered. A shape emerged from the darkness. The man. The same customer who had walked in minutes ago. His clothes were the same. His posture was the same. But something about him was off. Of course it was. He stepped out of the aisle. That shouldn't have been possible. Rule number 11. They cannot leave the aisles. I felt a cold wave of realization hit me. They. I had written they. Not customers. Not people. Just they. And whatever stood in front of me now. It wasn't him anymore. It smiled. Too wide. Too slow. You changed the rules, it said. The voice was wrong. Flat. Hollow. Not mimicking anyone this time. Just, something wearing sound. My heart pounded. What are you? I asked before I could stop myself. It tilted its head. I hated that movement. Always too far. Always too deliberate. Aloud, it replied. Behind it, the third aisle pulsed faintly with shadow. Like something was pushing against the edges again. Testing. Learning. Adapting. Just like before. I took a step back. You shouldn't be able to leave, I said. The thing looked down at its own hands, flexing its fingers slowly, like it was discovering them for the first time. You said they couldn't, it answered. You didn't say I couldn't become something else. My stomach dropped. It had found a loophole. Of course it had. This place thrived on loopholes. I backed toward the desk again, my eyes flicking to the rule sheet. The pen was still there. Waiting. Always waiting. The thing noticed. Its smile sharpened. You'll write another one, it said calmly. You always do. Another step forward. Closer. Closer than anything had ever been outside the aisles. And every time you do, it continued, voice lowering, you make this place stronger. That made me hesitate. Just for a second. And that was enough. The lights flickered violently. All of them. The shelves creaked. Shifted. The aisle behind it stretched wider. Darker. Something inside was trying to come through. Not cautiously this time. Hungry. The thing in front of me didn't turn. Didn't need to. It already knew. They're learning faster now, it said softly. Then it looked straight at me. And for the first time. It wasn't smiling. They're learning from you. A loud crack echoed from the third aisle. Like something snapping. Breaking through. I grabbed the pen. Not because I had a plan. But because I didn't have a choice. The page waited. The store waited. Everything waited. And as the shadows began to spill out behind the thing standing in front of me, I realized something worse than being trapped here. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming part of how this place worked. I pressed the pen to the paper. The pen touched the page. And for the first time, I hesitated. Not because I didn't know what to write, but because I finally understood what writing meant. Every rule I added didn't just protect me. It reshaped the bookstore. Gave it structure. Gave it permission. The thing standing in front of me watched quietly now. No smile. No rush. Like it already knew how this would end. Behind it, the third aisle was breaking open. Shadows spilled across the floor like liquid, stretching toward the front desk. I could hear movement inside them, many things, shifting, crawling, pressing forward all at once. "They're coming," it said softly. "I know," I replied. My voice was steady. That surprised me. Because for the first time since I got here, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. I looked down at the page. Rules 1 through 12. All written to survive. To delay. To contain. But not to escape. Not once. A slow breath filled my lungs. Then I began to write. Rule number 13, the bookkeeper may leave the store once a replacement accepts the position. The moment I finished, everything stopped. The shadows froze mid-motion. The light steadied. The air itself seemed to tighten, like the building had just taken a breath and was holding it. The thing in front of me went completely still. Then, very slowly, it smiled again. But this time, it looked genuine. Clever, it said. Not mocking. Not hollow. Almost approving. Behind it, the darkness receded, pulled back into the third aisle like a tide reversing. The pressure in the room eased. But something else replaced it. Expectation. I swallowed. A replacement, I murmured. The thing nodded. Every system needs continuity. Of course it did. That's what this place was. Not a prison. Not exactly. A system. And I had just written the only exit it would ever allow. On its terms. The bell above the door rang. Clear. Sharp. Real. I turned. Someone stood in the doorway. A young woman, hesitant, peering inside like she wasn't sure she should be there. Normal. Completely normal. Hi, she said. Are you open? I stared at her. Then at the rule sheet in my hand. Then back at her. The thing beside the aisle didn't move. Didn't interfere. It didn't need to. This part was mine. Slowly, I stepped out from behind the desk. For the first time in 3 months, my legs felt light. You looking for anything in particular? I asked. My voice sounded almost normal. She smiled, relieved. Just browsing. I nodded. Of course, I said gently. Then I gestured toward the shelves. Feel free to look around. A pause. Then I added. Just, stay near the front for now. Some of the deeper aisles can be a little confusing. She laughed softly. Got it. And just like that, it began again. I stepped past her. Toward the door. Each step felt unreal. Like I expected the walls to stretch. The floor to shift. The air to pull me back. But nothing happened. I reached the threshold. Stopped. For a moment, I almost looked back. At the desk. At the aisles. At the thing still watching from the edge of the third row. But I didn't. Because I already knew what I'd see. Instead, I stepped outside. Into the cold air. Into the real world. The bell rang softly behind me. And the door closed. If you are new on my channel The Silent Screams, please donate me in the form of subscribe.